Where's my book?
All right. So we should be live on YouTube.
Did you see my book?
Your book.
My instructions?
I don't know.
Well,
oh, there we go.
I don't have any. I had a book that was a quilt.
Is it under the, oh, is it under the quilt?
No. I wonder if I
pulled that apart. Hi, everybody. We're trying to get all set up here, but I think YouTube's streaming, so
I might have to go find another pattern.
Mom has to find her instructions. So she's going to look around for that, and I'm going to get Facebook set up. Let's see.
Huh. I had a book.
You are now live. All right. Facebook should be popping up here any second.
There it is. Not totally lunar.
Did you find it? All right, we're back in business. We have instructions. And then, let's see. It looks like we got some viewers popping up on Facebook. So I see viewers on YouTube. I see viewers on Facebook. I believe our sound is good to go. If you guys have any issues, tell us for sure, and we'll see if we can fix it. But everything there looks good. So on our end anyway. Let's see. Happy holidays. We're going to be here today and tomorrow. We're doing the Q4 for Cosmic Fireworks. That is the project that we've been doing all year long in the Quiltworx Box program. If you are new to this, and this is the first time you're tuning in, you can definitely still get this pattern. So what I have done is I have, even though you can't order the box program for 2025 anymore, you can still get the pattern on our website. And you can also go out on the Quiltster Marketplace and you can get links on the Quiltster Market, or you can find links for a few different colorways. So the two colorways that we're going to show you today and tomorrow, I have kits out on Quiltster for the sizes of quilts. The only one we don't have is the one on the wall behind Mom right now is the Tim Holtz version. I don't have a king size version of that one colored yet, but I do have wall and queen and wall, queen, and king of Cosmic Fireworks. So those are the ones that we have for now. Doesn't mean that in a few weeks we might not get more, especially if there's demand. But we are out of all of the fabrics for the Island Batik and the Hoffman and the Timeless Treasures versions that we did for the box program. The only reason I have more Cosmic Fireworks is because I was able to order more fabric because it's a basics. So that's one of the huge benefits of having your own basics line. And we definitely want to thank Timeless Treasures for helping us keep these fabrics available for everyone and for us so that we can continue to offer these awesome patterns. Many of you who are doing the King might have already noticed that we put out some videos yesterday that cover the cutting and the piecing for the Starshine border, and then also the cutting for the king size wagon wheels border. So today we're going to just go over piecing for the Cogs and Blocks border. She's not going to do cutting because it was basically the same cutting process as the inside border.
We're going to do a little bit of cutting.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we're going to do a little bit of cutting. She's also going to talk about that border that you see, the little pink thin border. She's going to go over some little tips and tricks because some people suggested they might be having issues getting those to match up. So she's going to give you some ideas there. And yeah, it's 1 o'clock and we have 22 people on Facebook and we have about 10 on YouTube. So the last thing I want to do right before we get started is I'm going to switch views and we are going to show you our newest pattern to the best of our ability in the video studio because it's a big quilt. But
let me grab that ladder.
Okay, we're going to grab a ladder and then we can show it to you. I'm pretty excited about this because it's a brand new design. It's called I can't even remember today. It's called Western Monarch. And it's out of a new line of Hoffman fabrics. Maybe I'll get close and you can kind of see. Can you see the little monarch butterflies in that main print that we use for it? So anyway, we're going to show it. So
you can spread it out.
Don't fall, Mom.
I'm good.
You got the top there?
Yep.
All right, so there is the Western Monarch. As much as we can fit into the screen, Hoffman Fabrics, we're publishing it today. For those of you interested in buying kits, several of our shops, certified shops will have them. I know there are some shops that aren't certified that brought in the fabric line. Keepsake Quilting will be carrying kits. Quiltworx will have a few of these listed on the Quiltster Marketplace sometime within the next couple days. And we have patterns available as well. So the fabric lines just started shipping to shops. So even if they don't have kits, it's definitely something that you should be able to find in terms of yardage using the kitting sheets. I don't know if they can see it, but look how, I'm going to try and get up close.
I don't think you can see it.
I don't know if you can see it. The back of this quilt is so cool because all of the orange and red threads kind of pop out of the black fabric on the back. So, all right. I think, Mom, we are ready to get started then.
Okay, so we're going to start. Hi, everybody. We got a lot of stuff we're going to do. I'm going to kind of explain to you a little bit how we're going to go through this. So in order for me to get the samples that we needed on the wall, we had to make some of the parts already. And I wasn't going to make 2 of these. So what I did is I did all of the strip cutting and I sorted all the templates like what we've been doing for all of the other borders. And then what we're going to do is just kind of go through and show you what templates are paired with the fabrics and talk about that as we go. And then we're going to do a little bit of paper piecing. And my biggest goal today is actually to get into assembling the border, because so much of the paper piecing is just paper piecing, and it's really no different than anything we've done in the previous videos. Okay?
Our camera keeps, they can see you. The camera just keeps kind of moving slowly one direction. So hopefully that'll even it out. If not, we might have a slightly crooked video for the day. We'll see.
Okay. So the very first thing we're going to do is go over how to match these up. I think it's in the other video, but I'm going to try to explain it a little bit better. And I have some samples here that I can show you, all right, and work with. So basically, if you were working on paper, we could actually just lay the paper on top of each other. We could fold back our seam allowance, and we would know that it was going to fit perfectly because we would match up those lines, right? And you have to do basically the same thing with your fabric, okay? So the problem with fabric is first you have the lumps from the seam allowance, and then the other thing you have issues with is where's that 1/4 inch line at, okay? So you kind of have to make a guess on where that 1/4 inch is. So if you'll take your little glue pen, and when you fold back those, the cotton fabric, which I'm going to show you, you can actually put, I'm going to do it on paper first, you can actually put just a touch of glue where you folded it and match it up. Now, one of the things that's interesting about this is you can also, because the bane is the last thing that's put on, you can also set it up to where you can have opposing seams. So this, where these two actually join, that's pretty much a straight line over there like that, okay? But let's say I was going to join at the angle where the angles come together, then that's a totally different type of joining situation. So let's say I had to join two angles, then what you have to figure out is where those are, that crisscrosses, where those two lines are going to cross. And it's like an X seam. And you just have to make yourself match it, okay? And it's something that we have to just try to, we just have to focus on it. And hopefully at some point you're going to get to the point where you can actually make those match. So what I'm going to do is I have already sewn a vein on this paper here. What I'm going to do is, because I have that line, you can actually take that and you can draw where that 1/4 inch line is if you have a pencil. Okay, so I'm going to just draw that 1/4 inch with my pencil right along there. Okay, oops, it didn't do a very good mark on it. I'm going to mark it dark. Hopefully you can kind of see what I'm doing here. But I basically extended this 1/4 inch line up here, so I know now exactly where that has to match the other line. So I can fold that back just a little bit right on that line, and you can take and put just a touch of glue on the back side of the fabric to hold that where it's going to be. Now I can take that and I can set that onto my other piece to see exactly where that's going to match up. So now I have a perfect match, okay? So now the trick is to open that up and stay and figure out where that line's going to be. So one of the things you can do with this is you can actually take and use your glue pen again, which is right here, and just put a touch of glue on there. Don't get a lot of glue on there because you're probably going to have to open it up. But if you touch it just a little bit, then when you open it up, you can see where those lines are crossing. Okay, so now if I look at this, I have a perfectly straight line where those fabrics are coming together right here. All right, and that's what you have to look for. So if I put my ruler on here with the two seams at 1/4 inch, I have a perfectly straight line right there. And I have to be able to sew and hit that point, okay? And that's where you're marking it with a pencil is going to really help, is because you can come in and mark that as well. And you mark your fabric. So I've got paper here that I'm working with, but you guys will have to mark that fabric, and you can mark a line right across there. And then you know where that 1/4 inch is. And so you can mark your 1/4 inch. And basically what you're doing is marking an X across there, okay? The other thing you're going to be fighting is the fact that whether or not you actually, what did I just drop? Oh, okay, my pen. You want to make sure that you have, this is coming directly across right here, and then you have to check at the top. and you need to lay those on top before you start the sewing process to make sure that they're the same size. Because if you're off on the line when you're actually sewing the vein on to your fabric, or the paper and the fabric, if you're off on that line just a little bit, then you're going to be off here. So this vein and this vein have to match perfectly size-wise before you sew that together, all right? And if it's not matching, so if you're off your lines a little bit when you did your sewing, then you need to go back and clean up that stitch and pick it back a little bit and redo it to make sure it falls right on the line. Because if it's not on the line, then you can't match it, especially with an X seam. There's no stretching it to try to get that to match up, okay? So it takes a little bit of practice, but after doing it a few times, practice on some paper and just build yourself some X seams with your paper, and practice on that, and pretty soon you're going to get a feel for what it's supposed to look like with your fabric. And don't be afraid to mark those points when you first start learning how to do it, and eventually you'll be able to just lay it on top of each other, fold it back, eyeball where it's going to be, put a little pin in there, and it's good to go. And you'll have these perfect matches all the way through it, okay? It does take some practice, all right? So hopefully that will help some of you on matching those points, all right? So let's get rid of that. Okay, so let's go to our instructions. So let's pick up my glue thing here. And on the Cogs and Block border, you have to have your bags, and that's the first thing you want to do, because you need to pair up. Everything is paired up with certain pieces. And in the bags, that's what you want to keep everything paired up with their bags, and then that's going to help you when you start to join everything there, okay? And so I have made my bags, and they're in this pile here, okay? And when you do all your cutting out, put the foundation papers in the bags, and your templates are all going to be stacked to the side. And then as you start going through the cutting instructions, you're going to pair up all of the templates with your fabric strips, okay? So we're going to go to the second page. On your yardage, okay, you have your yardage chart. You need to put your swatches in there so you can remember where your colors are going to go, because you have lots of different colors here, all right? And so get those colors into your yardage. And then remember, we give you a color chart, and that color chart is sitting on page 3 at the top. And then you have an alternative color chart at the bottom. So you have to figure out which one of those color charts you're actually using before you start putting swatches on, okay? So one of the things I did is I'm going to show you guys some papers here in these particular bags. Because when you start doing your paper piecing and you have to leave things, sometimes it's easy to pick up the wrong colors and sew them in the wrong place. So I like to actually go through and lay this out and make sure all of my fabric swatches are where they're supposed to be. So that way, if I lay it down, I come back and something got moved, I can still get everything in the order that it needs to be. On this one, we started out, we have the 2 end pieces are orange, and then we go to red, we go to pink, we have purple, the darker blue, and then a really light blue in there, okay? And that really helps you with setting up your colors and keeping things in track. I normally do this when I'm working with multiple colors, so that I can leave it, come back, or actually hand it over to somebody and let somebody else finish it for me, all right? So we're going to put these back in order. And these are my scraps. We don't need that. So after you guys get your yardage chart set up, after you get your swatches onto your newsprint or on that you're going to be sewing, then you can move forward to the cutting instructions. The other thing I do want to bring to your attention is you have, it looks like there's different fabric charts in here, which I'm assuming that's because of the different colorways, right? Yeah. Okay. So Judel set it up to where you had your different, you need to figure out, if you haven't cut it out already, figure out which one of those colorways, those charts go with the colors that you got in your boxes. Okay. And there was, it tells you on those as well which ones. That's the standard option.
They want the alternate for this pattern.
For this one, they want the alternate? Okay.
Yeah, the standard alternates 2 colors there, and then this
one has the rainbow.
Each piece a different color.
Okay.
So you definitely want to make sure you choose the right alternative there.
Yeah, which is at the bottom of your page on page 3.
Yeah, and then you need to go to the cutting instructions in the booklet
that are for the
alternative.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you'll start cutting and you'll get, it will just be confusing.
Yeah. So basically, let's kind of go through that first part of it. So it looks like when you go to fabric D1, that's going to be the same. Fabric D2 is the same. Fabric D3, fabric D4 is the same. Fabric D5 is going to be the same. And then you get down to fabrics D6, and it looks like fabric D6 is probably the same. Okay, so then when you get over here to fabrics D7, that's when you need to look for your alternatives, okay? And that's going to give you your cutting instructions. So when you look at the first one, it says standard option on the first one. And then you go over to the second column, and there it's talking about the color, the alternative, okay? And so then basically what it's telling you is you're going to have your 8 colors, and then you're going to have to cut your templates apart. And then we pair those templates up, all right? So I'm actually going to show you very quickly what I did there so that you'll follow me as we go through the cutting instructions. So here, if we look, I have all of my color options, and I went through and paired up my templates with these sheets here. So I just looked at the sheets, and on those sheets I was able to read on them what the template number was, and then I was able to find the template that goes with that spot, and I put a little swatch on these as well. So you'll want to do that because that will keep you from getting the wrong templates on. A good portion of these templates you can mix in between, but the end pieces on both of them, the last 2 end pieces are a separate or a different template. So you can't mix those up, okay? So anyway, I have all of my fabrics on that. So when I get ready to start cutting those, we'll be able to pair them up very easily before we start cutting, right? So I'm gonna put this back in there. And the only way you can figure that out is to get this laid out first and paste these on here, and then you just pair up everything, the templates on there, okay? All right, now that I have everything out of order. So that's basically what we're gonna do. So we're just gonna work through the cutting instructions, pair up the templates. I'm gonna show you how to cut everything out. And then we're going to go over the foundation paper piecing. So let's start with fabric D1. And fabric D1 is actually, if we look, it's a template, and there's some T templates there, all right? So this is my fabric D1. I've already done a bunch of cutting on them, so I just want to show you how these are set up. So The T templates have to be cut to the exact size of the template. And then the template, the one that just says template D1R, see, these don't have to really be cut to the size. Just lay it down there, cut around them, and you're good to go. All right. So on my sheet, if you have you open this up, your strips, you have them stacked. You can take the template that's just a paper piecing template, and the way you can tell if it's a paper piecing template is it has extra yard or seam allowances on it, and it just says template. All right, and that's going to go on the first half, just like this, and it doesn't have to be on there perfectly. I'm going to cut the selvage off, and then I'm just going to bring this down, and I'm just going to cut it again. I don't even really have to go through and cut those little angles there. All right, and then you're going to take the next one, and that's where you're going to put your T template at. All right, so we're going to take the T template. You're going to want your repositionable glue on the back of this, because otherwise it's going to move when you try to do your cutting. The other thing I did on this one is I took and I took my TRP line and I actually cut that, because now I can mark it. Rather than having to go through there and sew 8 layers together, I can actually just mark it, and I can actually sew each layer separately if I want, or I can mark each layer. And I don't have my white pencil with me, but I just fold that back and then I go like that. If I want to sew that, I can just lift this up, and after I get it cut, I can actually just take this template, put it on there, and then we can do the next one and cut it. It's easier, like if I took it right now and I actually sewed this, I'm going to show you how I do it. I can actually just stitch that down there like that. And then I can come in and we can cut it. We can trim it down to the exact size. Okay, so now that I get that cut to the exact size, I can actually take this off and then I can put it on the next piece. The one thing you want to make sure of, though, let's say I'm working with a batik, I would actually come in here and I would mark some X's, some lines on the back of that. I don't know. There we go. On my batiks, I would mark the back so that once I pulled this paper off, I wouldn't forget which one was the back side and which one was the front side, because the templates are not reversible. You have to make sure you have the right template there, right? So now I can take the next piece, and again, I can just take my template on here, and I can go sew that line, and then retrim it again, okay? That works pretty good. And the difference between which way you decide to do it really is going to depend on what color your fabric is, what color your marking pencils are, as far as can you see it, and is that chalk going to stay on it. And if I know that the chalk's going to disappear on it after it sets in the box and gets rubbed against until we're ready to work with these pieces, then I'm going to go to the effort and actually sew those lines, all right? So I've given you several different ways to go about cutting those. So let's go ahead and let's get rid of these because we don't need them now. I'll just clip them back together. We're going to set it over here. So on the next piece, this is my fabric D2. And if I'm looking, it's telling me that I have just a template D1R and a template D1L. Okay. And I'm looking at it. There's no TRP lines on there. And it looks like you can pretty much just cut all of these together, right? So we have two different size templates there. And these are paper piecing templates. So here again, because they're paper piecing, if we don't want to go to the effort to cut it perfectly along those angles, it's not going to make a lot of difference as long as you have your sew side trim to fit onto your papers, okay? So if we want to just take these and slice them right here like this, we can work those and those will just go right on, and it saves you a little bit of cutting time there, all right? So those are ready to go. And look at your pictures to see how many you're supposed to be cutting from everything, and whether or not you're supposed to be dividing your fabrics into two stacks, because some of these require you to divide your fabrics and some of them require you to just stack everything. So we'll set these aside. And then we're going to go to fabric D13. So D13 is for my big pieces, and I'm supposed to have 3 11-inch strips. I've already cut several of these out. So basically you have a full strip here. And you have to cut 8 pieces, okay? So if you have 3 strips, and if you look at the picture, it's telling you that you can get 3 pieces off of it. So when you go to cut these, basically you're going to have 1 piece here. And then I'm just going to do a rough cut on that. And then we're going to cut this one. Do a rough cut here. So when I rough cut it, I'll usually add about 1/8 of an inch to it. And now I can pick this up and I can just flip it around like this and line it up as close as I can along that edge. Because remember, we did a rough cut, so it's a little bit bigger than we need. Okay, so then if I had all 3 in, then I would pull the top piece off and then just cut 2 from the last bottom, and that's going to give me 8 pieces rather than cutting this piece up into something that I don't need. It's better to keep that as a bigger piece for mistakes, all right? So then if we needed to cut 3, we just flip it again and do it, all right? So we're going to set these aside. And I usually put all of the leftover stuff back into the bags for each group as we're working through the groups. Okay, so fabric D4. Fabric D4, I had to make these in order for me to do the demonstrations to assemble. But my fabric D4 was all I had to have. It says cut 2 5¼ inch strips. And again, look at the way the templates are set up and how they were set up on that strip. And you have to have 8 of those templates, okay? So anyway, that's your template piece. I had to cut those and make several of them. So I just wanted you guys to see what that color was. And then this one, these are the veins that we had to sew onto those pieces. So look at the way those are set up on an angle. And some people always ask me, well, why do I put them on an angle? And the reason why is because I have learned after doing this for years and years is that if I cut them across the grain like this, then I'm working with the straight of the grain on my curve. And so sometimes we'll do that when we're working with rainbow fabrics, but where these are all the same color, we're better off to just set it up and cut all of our strips, do one strip of fabric and set these on the bias as we go through here. So basically.
And the reason why on the rainbow fabrics that's important is because you might cut each of those pieces out of, so you would only cut one piece out of a strip of fabric, and it saves you yardage.
It saves you a lot, because if you had to have 8 colors here, you would basically have, and you're only cutting one piece from every color, you're going to have a ton of yardage waste. And so in those situations, we'll actually just say, okay, we're going to deal with the fact that that's all straight of grain along there. And then I'll usually put little clips in them, all right? So this one's going to come in here. We're going to set this on here like that. And then I'm just going to do a quick cut. And I think I need one more of these. I can't remember, but I'm just going to go ahead. I still have enough to do one more. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this just in case I need it. Now notice that I'm not worried about doing a perfect cut. So when you're reading these instructions, many times that we're setting up these veins, what we'll tell people is do a rough cut around it and then go in there and do all your TRP lines. Our newer patterns will give you these papers for all of a different paper for all of your veins, okay? In our older patterns, a lot of the older patterns, you only got one set of papers, and so you had to have layers under there. And we just found that people were a lot happier if we gave them multiple papers, because then they didn't have to try to figure out how to get all the TRPs, because there's 4 TRP lines on this set. And sometimes we'll have 5 or 6 or 7, and that's a lot to have to get perfectly marked when you're working with a pencil for marking. And so the sewing is more accurately when we do that. So I would just pick this up now after I got all my papers on and take them to my machine and go ahead and sew all those TRP lines. I don't like to wait when I'm doing my cutting. I like to just sit down and sew all the TRP lines as we go through the cutting, because then it's done and I don't have to come back and do it again. It's just easier to get them all ready and sit down and sew all those TRP lines. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how I'd actually cut this as well.
We get a lot of questions on TRP lines about what's the proper stitch length, because every time you pick up a pattern, or when we first did them, Judy would change her mind about it. And so I've had people upset because they read one pattern and it says 2.5 and one says 2.8 and one says 2.0. Don't worry about it. So we've changed a lot of our new instructions to say Judy chooses anything between 2.0 and 2.8. Depending on the pattern, it is up to you to pick your favorite stitch length.
And it's also going to depend on your fabric. Because if you have a really lightweight fabric like K fabrics, you're going to want a bigger stitch there, because the little stitches, you're not going to be able to get them out. If you're working with a batik, a tighter stitch is going to work better for you, and you can still get it out, and you can get underneath it without fraying the fabric or grabbing it, trying to get the pieces out. So it really does depend on the type of fabrics that you're working with, but you need to be able to pull those stitches out.
Right.
If you get too big, then they come out when you remove the paper, and you've just lost all your work and the reasoning behind having them. So that's why we keep changing our mind on things.
So really, just pick which line stitch length you like the best, and
go with it.
Go with it.
And it's not wrong. And if it comes out, then resew it. Okay. So on this one, this is where we put two pieces, and the reason we'll put these two pieces together is because we can get them closer on the newsprint, and we can also save yardage in that rather than having excess between everything. It keeps them pretty close. So the lines that I really need to pay attention to here on my veins are my sew sides. So it has my cut line 1, which is right here, and on this one, the cut line 1 or 2, it doesn't really matter, but they overlap down here. So we go in and then we stop right there, okay? And then we have to come in and we do cut line 2. Okay, and then we can get that little chunk on of there. And now at this point, if we have paper for every single piece, we just leave the paper on. If we didn't have paper for every single piece, then you would have those TRP lines sewn through like 4 layers of fabric there. And then you would have to go through and mark. And there again, in order to do the marking, you're actually just going to take, and when I have several layers there, my marking pencils are not working very well today. So I would actually just take and mark right along that line, okay, on both of them, on the back side of the fabric. And then if there were more layers there, I would pick it up and I would mark the next layer underneath of it, like that. And then if there's another layer, I'd fold that back and mark them before I pull the stitches out. Now when I pull the stitches out, I can still see where those marks are. If I don't have several layers, I just remove the paper. So here, I still have a mark here. On this one, because I have the paper, I can just rip the paper and I have the stitches, okay? One of the nice things about the stitches is when you're doing your curved piecing, you can see the back side and the front side to match it up. So it doesn't matter whether this was on the bottom or the top. When you're working with just a mark, you're only going to have that mark on the back side. So you have your pluses and minuses there. You decide which way you want to do it and be happy with it. There again, it's not a right or wrong way. It's a choice that we make in trying to keep the time frame that we're working with down, okay? Okay, so then we get to fabric D6. And fabric D6, so if you look at your instructions, there's a little note there. And whenever you have a little note, you need to read it, okay? That's the reason it says note on there, is because it stops people like me from just looking at the picture and going, oh, okay, this is what I have to do. So read your notes, because it's usually important that you read it. It's probably special instructions that you need, okay? And in that note, it says if you pre-cut your fabric strips using the Quiltster app, because in Quiltster, if we can cut things from the same fabric, 2 or 3 templates from the same fabric, sometimes we'll combine that. And so we have to have different strip lengths, okay? So you will need to subcut each 21 1/4 inch strip into 2 8-inch strips and 1 5 1/4 inch strip, okay? And that's why you want to read those notes, because if I look at that, I probably had more, I probably had a couple 21 1/2 inch strips or a 1/4 inch strips. And if I just go down to my cutting instructions, and the first thing it says is cut 4 8-inch strips. Well, if I didn't know any better, I'd just start cutting 4 8-inch strips. Well, I'm going to screw up my cutting and I'm going to run out of fabric, because I need to make sure that those strips, those bigger strips, are stacked, and then we would cut 4, so we do 2 at one time and 2 at another time, and then we would have the small pieces. So you really need to read those because it's going to tell you how to make sure to get it to where you're cutting all the strips evenly at the same time. All right. So on here, I have my 4 8-inch strips. I only have 2 because I cut up 2 already. And it's going to tell me to stack them like this. And I like to look at my pictures. And so one of the things I can tell by looking at this picture is that I really don't have a lot of excess fabric. Okay. But it looks like I have right at the center. Okay. So basically, these pieces are going to go, I have my left side pieces here and my right side pieces here. And I'm going to look at read the instructions, read the pictures, and it tells me that template layout sheet number 3 is going to go on this side. Okay. And we can put a little bit of repositionable glue, but there it is, on the floor. And we'll just put... And if you are one of these people that you really don't want to use repositionable glue, then use a flower pen and just come in here and pin it in 3 or 4 places, and then it's ready to go. All right. So I've got my layers, and then I can come in here and I can cut this. Okay. So there's my number 3 piece. And then here I have, this one is my template layout sheet number 2, and it's going to go on here like that. And again, I can use my repositionable glue, or I can use a pen. And the other thing you can do is you can actually come in here and put paper clips on it. And I can clip everything together before I cut. And I'm going to show you the reason why I like doing it this way. I missed that one. All right. Okay. So if I do this, now when I come in here and I cut them apart, I'm going to grab my add a quarter ruler, and we're going to start here on line 1. And then we're going to go to line 2. So the nice thing about this process is all my pieces are clipped together now. All right. So I showed you what that's like, so we'll just set that aside. Where if I do it this way, I would have to have a pin in every one of those. And so what happens is if I start on my cut line 1, which is here, and I start cutting, in order to keep all those pieces together, you have to pick them up and put that paper clip on it anyway. Okay, so it's just faster to just clip the whole thing on there with the paper clip. And if you use the paper clips, you don't even have to use a repositionable glue on it. All right. So that's the way we do all of that cutting there. We're going to set this over here. All right. So then we're going to go. So I'm going to skip the alternatives for now because I want to go over and show you fabric D8, which is my bias. So we move to page 7, and at the top, this is a bias strip. So I get asked a lot, why do I use bias strips sometimes for my veins, and why do I use the templates? Okay, so in general, your templates are better fitting. They're going to fit, they're not going to stretch the way your bias does. But if I was to set this up with templates, instead of just cutting bias strips, we probably would have used, well, these are 27 inches. I'm guessing we probably would have had close to 2 yards of fabric if I'd used the template instead of the bias strips. And so I have to weigh the difference between, you know, am I better off to have the fullness of the bias or have a template which fits perfectly, or work with bias. And so we made the choice to go with the bias rather than throwing away 2 yards of fabric, okay? So we've got 27 inches, and what I do is I actually take my fabric and I fold it. So I just grab it over here and I fold it right on the bias. And once I get it folded, then I bring it and fold it this direction. And then I'll come in and I'll clean off the fold so that I have a nice straight line there, okay? And then we're going to just take this and I'm going to fold it again along that edge to fit onto my table. And there we go. And we're going to go through and we're going to cut. So now all I have to do is figure out the size, and it says to cut those 1 3/4 inches. So we're just going to start here. We're going to find 1 3/4 inches. And it tells me that I need to cut 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 pieces. So I'm just going to run across here. I can't remember how many I already cut, so let's just go ahead and cut it up. And I set the length up on these so that I could get 8 pieces out of it without having to join any of the strips, all right? So I figured out what you needed for yardage so that you didn't have seams in the middle of the big pieces. All right, does that make sense what I'm doing? And now when I open these up, I'll open up this one. I have these long strips here that I'm going to work with for putting on those long veins, all right? So we'll set these aside now. And that's the difference between whether or not we're going to use the templates to cut our veins or the bias, right? Okay, so then I'm going to skip to fabric D9 for the demo. And D9 is for all of my big templates. So if you look, D9 has a pre-cut information note. So basically we started out with 23-inch strips, and then we had to cut each strip into 2 11.5-inch strips, okay? Now you would ask me, well, why didn't I just tell you to cut all those 11-inch strips? And the reason why is because we're using multiple templates to cut all this fabric. And so we have to combine all those multiple templates in Quiltster. If I give you 1 template per strip, it allows you to go in there and change out the color, but you wouldn't like it when you were done because you'd end up with 1 color over here and 1 over here. And some people would say, well, why would I do that? Well, it's easy in Quiltster to make the mistake of grabbing 2 fabrics that are very close and they look really close together. And so we started just combining all of that so that if it's all cut from your backgrounds, then we're going to combine all that total yardage and you're going to come back and do all your template cutting off of that. So it's a little bit extra step, but it saves you yardage, and it's just a better way to do it. And it keeps us from making, our students from making mistakes in cutting out of 2 different colors. And when they print out their fabrics, they realize, well, why did I use 2 colors there? And it's because it's hard to see in Quiltster whether or not two blacks are the same, from the same fabric. So it's going to tell me which templates go where. and how to stack it. So unit D4L and D5L template layout sheet number 9. So if you look at this template right here is a layout sheet, okay? And it's got multiple templates on it. So if we can fit multiple templates onto a layout sheet for this, it makes your cutting a lot easier. Okay, so we're just gonna take that and we have to open up these pieces like this. And I believe that I've already cut, and I need one of these for this one. So we're only gonna cut one layer. So then I'm going to bring this over here and set it on there. And the reason we're not getting another piece in here is because I'm not sure it fits. We probably can't get 2 pieces on there. Let's look. Yeah, it does. So I actually get 2 pieces on here. So I'm going to take this and then we're going to flip it around. So this is a little trick I want to go over with you. So if you have folds and it's really causing problems, I just grab my little starch pin, acorn starch pin, and I just run it down onto that, and that gets that fold to lay flat on the ground.
Earlier this year, if you were in the box program, we gave everybody that, and this quarter you got refills for it. So that's kind of cool.
So we're going to take this piece, and when I have to cut multiples, the first thing I do is get rid of my selvage, because I don't like leaving selvage on because it gets cut in the seam allowance, and then when you start sewing your pieces together, all of a sudden you have these selvage holes and stuff in it. So I just get rid of the selvage. And then we're going to come in here, and the best thing here to do is to take my repositionable glue rather than a pin, because I have to do a couple layers. But right in this area right here, that's all being cut out. That's going to be wasted fabric. So I put more glue right there where it's going to be cut out, and then just a little up in here.
So I can't remember if I mentioned this up front, but I did list some kits for this colorway, but that specific color is the color that has not shipped, or it's in process. They had to restock it at the warehouse. So if you order one of those, that's fine, but just understand that it may not ship for a few weeks because we have to get in this piece of fabric still, and it has not shown up. But I went ahead and listed, since we're doing the class and people usually ask me about the colorway.
So now I can just take this piece and I can flip it over like that, and that's going to give me 2 pieces from that. So that's the way those pieces are set up. So when you read that picture, basically what it's doing is it's telling you the first picture in your graphics is with one piece, and then if you continue reading down, it's going to tell you to flip that and cut the second piece out of there. But you don't want to do your cutting on it until you get both layers or all your layers of fabric underneath there, which I believe you have to have 4 layers if you were doing the whole thing. All right. So for this one, I'm actually just going to put a few flower pins in here and hold this together so it doesn't get lost. And then we're going to fold it up and set this aside. Okay. And we'll cut this one out of here, and I'll just leave that together like this. All right. And then we have our last cut that we have to make, which are these really long border templates, okay? So those are going to be around the outside edges. And if you look, we're going to read on those. those are templates. So that's done with paper piecing, okay? So we have these set up like this. And I just have these set up. And again, because these are paper piecing, I have the choice that I can actually basically just cut a strip of fabric, or I can cut it at the angles. So on this one, I'm just going to go ahead and cut my angles on it. And so we're just going to cut it. Now, if I'm looking at my picture, these strips are so long that I'm not getting 2 pieces off of it. So I only get the 1 piece. So we're just going to take that, cut those angles. All right, and we just go through the whole layer like that and get that cut. So we're going to set those aside, and I'll finish that cutting later. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is we're going to move back to all of that alternative cutting, right? So I already set all my templates up. Okay. And the first thing it's going to do is tell you to cut your template layout sheets apart, okay? Because these came as layout sheets. And then you're going to take each one of your colorways, right? And then you're going to match up those templates with it. So I'm going to take this one, and I'm going to look here. I'm just going to spread these colors out because that makes more sense to do it that way. Okay, so now I can just go through each one of these stacks because I paired these up before we ever got into the cutting. And I can say that template's going to go there. This one's going to go here. This one's going here. This one's going with that. See how much easier it is? And I don't have to keep going back to my book and my other pieces to figure out where they go, what templates go with what. That one goes there. This one goes here. This goes here. This one goes here, here. And then we can do the same thing because these are the mirror images. So that's going to go here. That one goes there. Here. This one is purple. This one is blue. That one goes here. That one goes there. Goes here. Here, here, and here. So when we're designing pieces, one of the reasons when we give ourselves the option, so if we wanted all of these colors to be the same, then the layout sheet is the faster way to cut them. If we wanted all of our pieces to be different colors, rather than giving you a whole other set of templates, we can actually just tell you to cut the layout sheets apart, and then you go in and choose which templates belong with the color and how you want to set that up. And that's basically what we did here, is we took our layout sheets, we took our foundation paper, we set up our color order on here, and then we took the layout sheets. Before I cut the layout sheets apart, I actually found where these templates matched up and put a swatch on them. And then I cut all my templates out. Now I had everything the way I needed it without having to pick up templates over and over and over to read them. All right. So that will save you a lot of time. And after you do that a few times with other patterns, it's really an easy way to work through it. So now you're going to go through your cutting instructions. And you're going to read, and it's going to tell you how many pieces you have to cut from everything. So some of these you have to have 8 pieces on, and some of them you have to have 4 pieces. So read through there as you're cutting them out, okay? I only have to have 4 pieces because I've already done several of these, right? So basically, I'm not going to go through and cut all of this because I'm not going to do the paper piecing on this piece because I really don't need to. I want to show you how to do the veins on it, and I have one done already. Okay, so we've done paper piecing on everything else, so I'm just going to take all of these and slip them back inside, and we can come back. I can come back and finish it later. How are we doing for time?
It is 2:01, so we have got an hour in.
Okay, good. So we're just going to slip all of those back in there. And I have another one that goes with that, so I'm going to put that in there, that. All right, so this particular unit, these are your big border units. These are the D1Rs, okay? And so I'm just going to quickly go over how those are set up. And after you have everything cut, then it's all put into your bags. And I did not do that because I knew we'd never get through all of the cutting in this video. So basically, I have this piece. So this piece is going to go here. That's my big piece right there. So that one goes there. And then we have that D1R piece, and that's going to be these pieces. This is a D1R, so these would be in here. And then we have our smaller pieces, which there's some more in there as well. I have another one over there. So basically, you're going to put that on the back side of there. And then after you get that on there, you're going to fold back, and then you're going to add your strips to it. And then you're going to fold back and add your strips to it. It's that simple, all right? So now some of these templates that we work with on these borders, you would think, well, why didn't we just cut great big pieces and sew them together? The reality is you're not going to save yourself any yardage at all by doing traditional piecing on it. And the accuracy that you get from these pieces is so much more accurate than the traditional piecing when we do these big edge templates like this. It really does come out because you have no distortion in your border pieces that you have to fit together. All right. The other thing I do want to point out to you is, Judel, can we move it over to the other wall for a second? All right, so this is the piece that I have all done. And these pieces actually have to match up to that seam line there. Okay, so this was my T template, and this is my paper pieced unit. Okay, and so it's you want to be really careful when you cut these T templates out and make sure they're very accurate so that they do actually match up, because that seam's going to match right up with that when we join that. All right. And we're going to do that in just a little bit. Okay, so you guys can get all the paper piecing, the cutting, and when you get all your cutting done, you're going to have everything in the bags, and then you're going to have then you can go through and finish up all the paper piecing, and then you'll be ready to assemble. And I'm going to slip this stuff back in this bag because I know that goes with it. And these pieces, I'm going to slip with these because I know those go with all of this stuff. Right, and then this template came in there. That goes up there like that. Okay, and there's my little T-templates. I'll sort that out. All right, so now we're going to actually go through the assembly, and we're going to assemble everything that you saw on the wall over there. So if you want to give them another shot of that. We're going to move these rulers here. All right, so we have this piece right here. So we're going to move back and forth between here and the wall. Actually, I'm going to take this over to the wall, all right? And then you're going to see it on the wall. Huh? Oh, I just pushed the wrong button. Here, go ahead. Okay. So basically, this unit right here is the opposite of what we see here. So the very first thing that we're going to assemble is these two pieces are going to be joined right here. Now, this is just a straight seam there, but when you do that X seam, that's where you have to fold it back and make sure that those lines match up. And I'm going to put this on this little camera right here.
Hold on a second. Okay, so you gotta come down with it.
Okay, I gotta get it so they can see. All right, so see how I have those folded back? And see, I have this line. This is one straight line right there, okay? And that's how I'm gonna get that to match up. And once I get that folded back, I can actually put just a little bit of glue right along this edge and this edge right here, and then I can flip that over, right? So let's go ahead and I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna show you. So I can actually just take and put some glue here and here. And if I know that that's correct, then I can flip it over like that. And I have to make sure I have my 1/4 inch seam allowance there. And I do. So that's going to go like that and that. Now I can actually take, can you see what I'm doing here? So I can actually come in here and mark where that 1/4 inch is. And now I know where I have to sew to hit that. And if I put a stiletto through there, I can tell whether I'm right on that seam. And when I open it up, it's going to be a perfect match. So do you see kind of what I'm talking about there, where that cross is there?
Yeah, move it back just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Can you see the lines that I put?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So that's how I make that stuff come out. And then if you have to double check it, just open it up before you sew and double check. And what you're looking for is to make sure that that's going to match up like that. All right. But that's what you're after. And it just takes a few pins, holding things, and a little bit of glue will get you there, as long as you check it before you sew. All right. So I've already assembled these pieces. So I'm going to just start with this piece right here.
I'm not sure where you're going.
We're over at my table again, because this is where we're going to sew. All right. And then we have this piece goes here, and we got to put the vein on it, which we're going to do here in just a minute. And then this piece comes in here like this. And then these pieces, this is a T-template. And I believe the T-template, I think it actually goes on this side right here. I have to look at the opposite. So this T-template's going to come up here, and then this piece is going to fit down here. So that's basically what we're going to work towards now, okay? So the first thing we got to do, I have this vein already sewn on, is I'm going to show you how to sew that vein on. And this is the bias vein, all right? So let's just set this out of the way, move this up, and I'm going to move this one and this one. So because we're working with a bias, we don't have TRP lines, even though I've sewn all these TRP lines on here, okay? So, but I can't put the TRP lines on the bias because of the way it's cut. All we have to do is just get this on here, and then we're going to remark those where those TRP lines are supposed to be. So I want to take this, I want to make sure that when I flip that over that it's going to cover that edge there. I've already sewn the basting line that's on the back of the paper, so that's where this stitch line's coming from. And be really careful not to stretch your bias, okay? Don't pull on it. We're just going to work it down with the glue. So let's grab our glue pen, and I'm just going to start right here. And don't put the glue over the top of that TRP line that was sewn there, right? I just glue right up to the edge of it. And that glue is supposed to only be about 1/4 of an inch wide, because that basically falls within the seam allowance. And see how I'm just pushing that down? I'm not pulling on this, I'm just pushing it down there. Once I get that on there, then we're going to do the next one. And your glue's going to dry pretty fast on your fabric, so you're just going to, don't try to glue the whole thing and then come back and put this on. You got to push that fabric together with this glue. Okay, so we got that part done. Now we're going to keep working back this way with it. I'm going to go a little bit further. The reason I don't like to run the glue right over the top of the basting lines is because then it makes it harder to pull those threads out because you've glued them into your fabric. Now this is a pretty big piece. You can actually sew right on the line on the back side, or if you want, you can use your 1/4 inch foot and use the edge of your basting line as your guide. I prefer to sew on the back side because I have a tendency to sew more accurately right on that line than using the edge of my 1/4 inch foot. Okay, so see how we got that on there? We didn't pull it, we didn't stretch it. And then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to double check. So I'm going to give myself 2 or 3 inches out to the edge there. I know that's on there, good. I'm going to get rid of a bunch of that excess threads. And we're going to go to our machine. And we're going to sew on the back side. And I'm sewing on line 24. And if you want, these don't really match up to anything, but let's say they did, then you'd want to make sure that you hit right on the line at the beginning and the end as you actually start sewing this. And I'm going to go down on my stitch length to about a 2 on this machine. And the closer you are to that line, the better that vein's gonna look. It keeps it all smooth, the same size. If you are really wobbly with your sewing and you're on and off the line, when you go to press that open, your vein's gonna look like it's fat and thin and fat and thin. And it's because you're not staying on the sew line. And at the end, try to stay on the line as well, okay? So because this is bias, when we press this out, it's really easy for it to stretch. So you want to make sure as you're putting that on there that you're not, don't run your iron along like this. Run your iron and press it out like this, okay? And steam it down. And if you have your starch pen, go ahead and use your starch pen, which I'm going to put a little bit of that along there. And here again, you can put that starch on the front side of it, or you can actually do the same thing, get to the same by just putting it right on the line on this side. It works both ways. I'm just about out, and I don't want to refill it. All right, I'm out. Okay, we're going to take it to the iron, and we're going to press. And again, remember I said press out sideways on it. Don't press like this.
They can only see that from a distance because we used that other camera.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
Switch this camera.
So anyway, just remember to kind of keep pressing out this way rather than pressing this way with it. And that will keep that bias from stretching along that line. Okay. So now we're going to flip it over and we're going to trim it. So the number one mistake people make with these veins is they think after the vein's on, they're done. And they forget they don't go back and trim. They usually only do that once or twice because after you don't trim it, this piece is too big. So it has to be trimmed. And if you look, I have excess fabric along the whole thing. But a lot of people will just forget it and they won't trim that top. And now their vein is too big and their quilt's not going to go together because it's not the right size. So make sure that you come back after you put the veins on and you trim right on that line. Okay. And I'm going to grab my curved ruler here. And I just adjust that ruler as we go. All right. So now I'm going to grab a little pair of scissors here. And see, I have these TRP lines, but we didn't have the TRP lines sewn through here, okay? So I'm going to fold back these veins, and I'm going to come over, and I'm going to cut my TRP line right up there at the top. So I have one there. I have one there. I'm not cutting through the vein. I'm folding that vein back out of the way. Okay. Now I'm going to lay this down, and we're going to grab our marking pencil again, which, oh, we're going to use the pen today. All right, and I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to put a little mark along that. So fold this back, and now what I'm marking is the back side of the vein. Okay, the fabric for the vein, I'm putting a mark on there. Okay, so now...
Hold on just 1 second, Mom. Someone asked, where do we get the curved rulers that we use for our cutting? So those you can get from the Quiltworx website. If you go to Quiltworx.com and then Notions, and then you can see cutting tools and rulers. You'll find a variety of curved rulers. The one she's using, and we have them in different radiuses, basically, or different, some of them are harsher curves than others, so that you can do a wide range of different.
So we have, these are some of them. So this one is actually called the curved diamond ruler, okay? And the radius on this is very, very commonly used in almost all of our patterns, all right? We figured out if we're going to design patterns and we're going to design veins, why don't we use the curved ruler to go with them? So the radius is very, very similar, okay?
And also, that ruler is actually included in one of our Technique of the Month patterns. So if someone has the dinner plate dahlia, we use it for a curved diamond piece that's in there.
Yep.
And it works with everything else too.
Okay, and then we also have a leaf ruler, and again, the leaf ruler came with one of the Technique of the Month ones too. I think it was Coral Reef.
Coral Reef.
Yeah, and it's more of a curve, all right, and we use it a lot. So we have a lot of this curve, this radius built into all of our patterns as well, okay? And then we have this ruler, and this is a Creative Grids ruler, and it's called the Wave Ruler. And it has a radius up here, but the radius on the bottom is different. And it's used for, we designed it to go with a book that we designed a whole bunch of small quilts. And I can't even remember what the name of the book is.
The book was called Windy Day book.
Okay, the Windy,
kind of
yeah.
Yeah.
And so basically it goes like this. You have these strips, and then you flip it, and you go like this, you flip it. And we have a whole bunch of foundation papers that go with it. But the quilts are really easy to make. They're the type of quilts that you can make without any paper piecing, or you can buy paper piecing and use a ruler on that, because we have charm elements that go with it, all right?
It's a little bit more cost than ruler because it's Creative Grids. It's got all the
creative stuff on it.
That Creative Grids is known for, but
and it also has the measurements that you have to have for the cutting for that book. But we still use the radius a lot in our patterns.
But it's only available through Quiltworx. You can't get it through Checker anymore if you're a quilt shop, but quilt shops can order it through us and they can get all these rulers at wholesale, and then customers can order directly from us or get them from quilt shops who carry them as well.
Yep. Okay.
And we have another one too. It's the mini.
Yeah,
I don't know if she has examples of it, but it's for really small, tiny, tight ones, like this guy.
Yeah, like those. So we have a little tiny one. Okay, so let's finish up our veins. So I've marked the back side of these. Now I can also go through, if I don't want to mark it, I could have come over here and just sewn right along that paper where I cut, all right? And then I would have had the TRP line sewn on the front and the back side of it, right? I just chose to mark it for the demonstration. Now we're going to flip this over. We want the paper on the bottom, the fabric up, and we're going to trim off all of this excess, leaving a 1/4 inch line. So I'm going to trim it right along the edge of that, where I glued that on. And I'm trimming right basically on that basting line. But I want to trim the basting stitches off.
So just on the inside of it.
So if you look at the pieces that I'm cutting off, the basting line is getting cut off. So basically it's going to leave me with a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance.
I just realized I didn't have my mic on when I was telling them about the rulers. So hopefully everybody got what they needed on that. As far as where to go. The website under notions and all of the different cutting rulers.
All right. So now when I flip it over, can you see what that's going to look like? So I have my vein fabric here. I have my TRP lines marked there. And now we're ready to basically assemble this, okay? So that's gonna go there. And this piece goes right here, okay? I have to remove that paper before I put this on here. Don't make the mistake of trying to leave the paper on or only removing partials of it, because it just doesn't glue down and form properly. So we're gonna get rid of all the paper. And I know everybody's always trying to save themselves time so they don't remove all the paper, but the reality is you got to remove the paper, whether you want to or not. So eventually it all comes off. So just get rid of it to start with. And I usually will just pinch right at the bottom of that, and that keeps those lines, the threads from backing off, because when you trim, you cut right along that thread. And a lot of times if you don't hold on to that right there at the end, it's going to actually back off and pull 2 or 3 stitches loose on there. I normally remove all the paper right before I sew my units together. So if I know I'm going to assemble a quilt, I'll sit down the night before and I'll start removing papers from the pieces that I'm going to sew up. And the other thing you should do is start with the last piece that you put on. So I started the first piece that I put on, and so I'm having to tear into it. So I'm going to flip over to this side now. And then each piece I remove is a complete, comes all the way down for me.
While she's doing that, I don't know if you guys have all seen, but if you haven't, you should go out to the Quiltworx Box Club Facebook group and check out the new, so normally I try and keep our little project that we put in, like our stash busters, as a surprise. But because it's kind of a new idea and a new project, and I also want you guys to know how cool of a project and how great of a value is, I leaked the first project that we're putting into next year's boxes as a surprise. And it is a panel border.
Can you show them?
My only issue, I don't know. Let me see if I can set it up to show you. I might have to. I didn't set up a page for the.
I have just a few more pieces.
Yeah. I'll see if I can pull it up. But anyway, if so, we can show it to you guys for the sometime before the end of this, if I can get it pulled up here. So, but it's a panel, and the fabric companies are donating panels this year, and then we are creating border patterns to go around it. And I have to tell you, this is not a little stash buster pattern. These are full instruction booklet patterns with probably anywhere from 5 to 10 sheets of newsprint in them, which means the patterns themselves that Quiltworx is putting in are expensive ones. Yes. And we're going to give those to you. And you're not only getting the panels, but we also put in all of the fabrics to make the border in a coordinating colorway. You can buy the panel borders without doing the quilt box, but they will not be out. So basically, if they come in February and March in the quilt boxes, then we will be releasing them to the general public in April-ish timeframe as a publication. And then you can just buy it and put it on whatever you want. You can buy more of them, but this is our way to launch the fact that Quiltworx is doing panel borders, which is something we've never done before. So
you should go grab the one that you did. It's folded up over there.
We can do that. As long as you don't need me to switch views, I can run and grab it real quick.
I'm going to stay right on this view. Okay, you guys, so I have a TRP line here and a TRP line here. So we're going to flip this piece over and we're going to put a pin and just pin that spot. And then we're going to grab another one and we're going to pin those two TRP lines together. All right. So now I'm going to take this, and I have a smart corner setting here. So I'm going to actually take my piece and we're going to grab our glue, and I'm going to glue that edge, raw edge there, and we're going to match that smart corner. This is not a matter of just sewing from one end to the other and seeing whether or not it matches. You're going to match before you start sewing, and you're going to get that glued down there so you have this perfect match on this end. And then you're going to come over and you're going to do this end as well. And so we're going to match those two smart corners there. Okay, so I have it matched on both ends. On this end right here and on this side, right where I matched those smart corners, I have a couple, there's seams that come out right there. So I'm going to actually just take my curved scissors here, and I'm just going to clean this off just a little bit and just cut that kind of at an angle to get some of that bulk out. And we're going to do the same thing here. And I just use my little curved scissors and it really pulls the bulk out of there on those end pieces. So now after I get that glued along those ends, now I can come back and I can put a little bit more glue on this and I can tack this down. Because this piece is so big, you're going to have better luck if you actually do glue those raw edges together on this. It's just that this piece is so big that it's just going to work better to glue those raw edges. So now if you look, we have it glued right along the edges, and we're going to sew 1/4 inch seam allowance. We're going to take this to our machine. Do you have to switch to the machine, Judel? All right. It's just a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I still have it set at 2 for my curved seam because I like to do my curved seams with a smaller stitch. Even if I don't have paper on them, I downsize the stitches on my curves. You should have your needle in the down position, which I did not. All right. And when you open this up, you should have a perfectly straight line on both pieces. And these don't match up to anything, so I'm just going to make sure that both of my seams are going to press into the vein on there. And I'm going to actually take and put a little bit of glue right here at the end. I'm going to push that down. We're going to put just a touch of glue on there and press that down as well. And now we'll go press the whole thing, okay?
And before we do the next step, I got it set up so I can show them the panel. So.
All right. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to flip this over. And so because I marked these TRP lines on the back, I can't see them. So what I have to do is, this is my first TRP line. I have to find it where it's at. And then what I do is just fold right there and I crease that. So now I can kind of see where that crease is. And we're going to pin all of the TRP lines together. All right. So Judel's going to go out and show you why I get this pinned on, okay?
Okay, so there's the bear, and we designed that panel to go around it. So that takes that bear from 36 by 43 up to 60, let's see, the dimensions are in here somewhere. 60 by 68. So it's I think it's a 12-inch border finished size. And there's quite a bit of piecing in there. It looks like it's gonna take around 6.5 yards of fabric or so. And we're putting that 6.5 yards of fabric in the boxes. So some people had asked me like a while back if, because these boxes are slightly more expensive, but still they're only like $15 more expensive than they were last year, or $25 more expensive, I think. Last year they were $135, this year they're $160. So that was to help cover the cost of bringing in some of the fabrics for this. But keep in mind that's another 6.5 yards of fabric plus the panel plus the pattern. This project alone looks like it's going to be upwards of $170 if you buy it complete as a kit with all of those pieces. And that's in the boxes, and the boxes are only $160. So it's a significant investment for a promotion for us, but we're really excited to do it because we just want these panel borders to get out there. We want people to practice and try them. And we hope that it kind of elevates the look of your panels going forward. Paper piecing is not cheap because you got to have all the papers and everything. But on the flip side, the outcome is really cool. And if you're a Montana resident and a Grizz fan, we have done a few versions of this up in Grizz colors. And even though I'm a Bobcat fan, I have a couple kids who are Grizz fans and they loved it. So it's pretty cool that way. And then also we can just give you an idea. So I'm going to switch to this view. So the reason we got into panels is because I am starting a new line of fabrics for myself that are panel fabrics. Let me make sure I got it the right way here. So this is my first panel, and it is coming through Timeless Treasures in when? May. And so as I start designing panels, I'm hoping to do maybe 4 a year. These will start coming with different panel borders on each of them, and we really hope to expand this line of products in the future, just to support both the fabric design that I'm doing, and also because panels are just a fun way to do quilts sometimes and get them done fast and fun. My panels are all based on my photography to some degree. So this is actually a photo that I took at Madeline Island School of the Arts. You can see the little wood trail that you walked back, and if you look really close, there's little things like leaves and mushrooms in it and twigs, and so that's going to be a super fun thing for us to put together, because it's going to feature photography that I've taken from all over the place. Sometimes we might add a little bit of embellished artistic flair to those photographs, but the photographs are always front and center and featured in those panels. So just to give you an idea, that is something that we're pretty excited about turning over. And this year's box program not only gets the panel borders first, but they also get all of that in there at basically free.
Yeah.
So we're excited for this promotion, and I hope that a lot of you can take advantage of it. All right, we're back to you, Mom.
Okay, so I've got everything glued, and I want to go over. So I've got 4 pins here, all right? So each one of these pins is one of the TRP lines. This pin, where this one's at, that's actually a seam line, but it matches up to a TRP line underneath, okay? And then we matched our corners. Remember how I said you always have to match those corners, so those are glued right where they're supposed to end up, and the same way over here. So before you start sewing, if you just start sewing on this and you don't glue these edges on this bias, you could very easily end up with 5 inches of fabric left over, because it's all bias and it's a great big long curve. And that's just going to, between the vein being bias and this being bias, it's just going to stretch. You can't just sew it. So you need to make sure you glue your ends and then come in here and glue it down and make it fit, because it is the right side. You cannot sew it together and then show me a picture of it with 4 inches hanging over and then say it doesn't fit, because we know it fits. It fits on paper. And it fits here. It's the perfect size in CAD. If it doesn't look right to you, it's because you stretched it. Okay, so let's go ahead and take this to our machine, and we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance on it. And I'm going to actually increase my stitch length to about 2.5, because I'm sewing on both the bottom and the top are bias, and so I want that to feed through faster for me. If I have a tighter stitch, it's going to cause it to pucker, and it's going to stretch it more. It's a perfect fit.
Hold on just a second. Okay, there we go.
All right, so I've got it straight here and it's still straight there. We're going to press it, and again I'm just going to press this direction, because if you look, those pieces don't match up into anything. So I'm going to press it into the vein, because that'll make it nicer for people quilting, because they can get quilt in the ditch on both sides of that vein, and they don't really even have to go in and do anything other quilting. So let's go press it. Judel can talk to you if she wants while we're pressing.
I should mention on those borders, they're adjustable. So if you see one on a 36-inch panel, it'll also fit 24-inch and anything basically between 24 and 36-inch to some degree. We're designing for 24, I think 30 and 36. Some of them will be a little bit more flexible in taking, trimming something down and taking a piece out, but we're providing a couple different adjustments, and we'll show you how to do that in a video once we release the first panel as well. So they will fit lots.
Okay, so I believe that's right.
You got to add that other template piece first.
Okay, so if you lay this on here like this, you're going to notice that it's too big, right? And it's because we have those little T-templates. And that little T-template has to be sewn onto this end first, right here. Okay, so it's going to go on there, and then we come back and sew this piece on like right there. Okay, so this goes on next, so we're going to put that on there. And we have smart corners built into it, so we're going to flip it over like this. Then we're going to glue that edge there. And I'm going to glue up about 2 inches on it. Okay. And this does not have any TRP lines on this side. There is one on the other side, but that's when you start joining the full quilt. So now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to glue down along this edge about 3 inches. And it fits really, really good. Okay, so now that I know that it's fitting down and laying down there, I'm going to put a little bit more glue on there. I don't have to do a lot of heavy gluing along that edge. I just want to tack it in a few spots. And after I get that tacked down, I'm actually going to grab some pins, because once I pick this up, it's going to stretch on me. So I'm going to actually take and pin along this other side here. And that way that's going to stop it from stretching as I lift it. Okay, now we're going to sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm sewing at a 2.5. This is a straight seam and it's not bias. The top piece is not, the T-template is not cut on the bias. The piece underneath it is bias. All right, so now we're gonna go press that. And your starch pin is going to work really nice getting that to lay flat. However, I ran out of my stuff, so I have to do a refill on it. Okay, so this seam right here is going to match up with this seam right here. So the most important spot we want to get pinned is right there, okay? And we're going to actually mark this. And I'm going to have to use my pencil. Is that, I think I'm out of lead. I'm not doing very well with marking today.
We're going to have to restock your sewing station here.
So I'm going to use a pencil here. So I have it marked right across that line there. And then we're going to mark this one again with my pencil. So it's going to be hard. You guys won't be able to see it, and I won't hardly be able to see it, but I can see it just a little bit there where that's at. Okay. And so now we're going to take, and I'm going to flip that over. And before I flip it over, I'm going to put a pin right through where I marked it, which is right there. Okay. And then I'm going to put it and pin it right where that mark is. All right. So I've got that. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that pin down, and I can feel the seam right along the edge there, and I'm going to mark right along that edge of that seam all the way down. And what that's given me is it gives me the X right on the back where that's where I'm supposed to hit it. Okay. And got it right in place. I can feel it. And then I'm going to put a pin in there. Okay, so now we're going to come over to this end, and we're going to match up that smart corner along that edge. And when I do that, I usually will glue back about 2 inches along there. Now you can see that it fits perfect along there, right? So I'm not even really going to glue it anymore. What I'm going to do is grab my flower pins, and I'm going to glue a pin right along this seam up here, and that will stop my fabric from stretching underneath as I sew. Now I'm not pinning right along my stitch line. I'm just pinning up about 1 inch right along there, because that stops this fabric from stretching underneath it, and I can control this as I'm going. If I want to tack it, I can definitely come in here and just put a little bit of glue in 3 or 4 spots and tack it down just like if I had pins there. Okay. And we're going to sew it, 1/4 inch seam allowance. Start right on that edge. I'm going to grab a little piece of paper and start sewing on my paper, because otherwise my feed dogs are going to pull that So the reason why I'm doing this is because now I don't have to worry about my needle and the feed dogs pulling that point in down into the machine, and I can lay the paper underneath it and just start sewing a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. And there we go. Now the pin where I have those pieces pinned, I don't want to pull that out. I'm just going to pull out one end and then I'm going to hold it in place. And I'm going to put my needle in the down position and just keep adjusting it. And then I want to hit it right on where that X is. Now let's open it up and we'll see if we hit that line where it was supposed to be. I'm gonna open it up. Perfect match. Okay, so now on here, what I would do is I would look at the pressing instructions. And that's something we didn't really talk about, but the pressing process throughout here, I just follow those pressing. So let's go here. And in your instructions, you were given some assembly graphics. So you should have a sheet that looks just like this. Let's see, I'll put it like that. You can kind of see it. And it starts up here with the exploded view, and then as you go down, it tells you what pieces you're going to add until you get both of them to the size that we finished here. All right, and so then after you get it to this size, then you're going to go over to it's LP71, and we've already joined these into these 1/4 pieces. So the next step is to join these 2 halves here, and then this piece goes onto here, and the other 4 corner pieces go on to these 1/4s. I'm going to pull this down like that so you can see what I'm talking about. The reason you want to do that is because it squares off here, and if you don't sew that piece and this piece together, then you're going to end up with these little tiny Y seams here at the end.
Hold on. The view, you were kind of standing off the view. Okay, so show them that Y seam again.
So right here, this is squared off on this piece. And you have to sew this piece onto here, and then you've put the 4 pieces together. And that's what the sheet shows you. And if you sew all 4 of these together and then come and add this, it creates a Y seam right out there at the top there, okay?
But there is a way to do it. If they did that on accident and they're like, oh, I don't want to have to pick the whole thing out.
Then you're going to go in there and you would pick out between here. So if you did sew this up like this, what you would do is come back and pick about 4 inches back on here, and then you can still get that piece on there without the Y seam. But don't try to sew that up as a Y seam. Just pick this line out and do it that way. If you forget and do it the other, if you join things before you're supposed to. So this sheet, LP71, shows you the assembly instructions from the very beginning. Okay, it starts with the star in the middle, and it shows you all the components as you work out there. Okay, I think I'm done with explaining. Do you guys have any questions before I stop? Did I miss anything?
Any questions? Because if not, then we have successfully finished the workshops for the large quilt for 2025.
Yeah, and we'll get it finished putting it together, and we'll show pictures of it in a few weeks.
And probably we don't have our king size people tuned in, but in case anyone who did tune in today is making the king size, tomorrow we're coming back on with a live to show you how to make the king size border. And we've already pre-posted some pre-recorded videos on
all of the cutting.
Yeah, and also on making that starshine border. And I should mention, all of these borders, they fit lots of our patterns. So if you are now, after doing one of the boxes, like interested in picking up another one and possibly making it queen size, you can definitely get these borders and tune back into these videos for tips and tricks on how to add those borders to your quilt. So the starshine border goes on lots of our patterns, and the wagon wheel king goes on lots of our patterns, and this Cogs and Blocks border is on several published patterns at this point. We just like it. So just keep that in mind, that some of this content is for elements that are used in more than one pattern of ours, and you may be able to come back and reference them at a later date if you want some little tips and tricks along the way. So someone said, I missed most of the first part. Can I run this again on my own? Yep. As soon as I press stop, it saves this video out. It takes a few minutes for it to load completely, but you can find it on both the Facebook and on our YouTube channel. Facebook only keeps it for about a month, but it's always on our YouTube channel for you to go back and reference. And if you didn't do the box program and you have watched some of these videos and think, oh, I'd love to make cosmic fireworks, you can just go buy the pattern and buy kits, and you can do this at any time at this point moving forward. If you're a quilt shop owner and you want to do kits for this project, you can find all of the information for it on our website. And you can put kits together and just let your customers know that there's videos out there that they can follow that aren't any extra cost. So there's lots of benefits to the way we're putting these programs together, and you can get to that content anytime you want. I would encourage you to go to our YouTube channel and watch it, and also subscribe to that YouTube channel as well. So let's see, I don't see any other questions that popped up. So I got a bunch of thank yous. So you're very welcome. And I think we're done then. So we'll see you guys. Well, for those that tune in tomorrow, we'll see you tomorrow. Otherwise, we'll see you in early January if you're doing the small box projects. And if you're looking to find out about 2026, go to box.quiltworx.com, and all of those projects are still something you can sign up for out there as well. So, all right, we'll see you later. Hold on, I'm still showing.